Or rather, he had been waiting for it. But when it came, he realized he wasn't as calm as he had thought. "Leave it here. Jury, you go out." Jury looked at him with concern, then sighed softly and left quietly. The room fell silent again. Lu Yuan drank some cold water. Then Gu Kexi's voice came from the speaker. Her voice was very soft and hoarse. There was no trace of the sharp, strong CEO of Gu Corporation. "Lu Yu, this is not an explanation. This is an apology. I know no matter how much I apologize, it won't be enough. But I can start here. I want to tell you a story, one I've never told anyone before. In college, about Song Hui Jin. I had a brief relationship with him. He was like you, very quiet, very gentle. The first person in front of whom I felt I could stand without any mask. After that, we arranged to meet once. He was coming to meet me. On the way, an accident happened. I still remember his last words in the emergency room, "Take care of little Shu." From that day on, Song Hui Shu became a thorn in her heart that would never come out. Not because of love, believe me, it really wasn't love. It was a kind of punishment I gave myself. I stubbornly insisted that if I hadn't asked him to meet, he wouldn't have died. So taking care of Song Hui Shu became my way of repaying Song Hui Jin. I thought that once I paid this debt, I could forgive myself. But I forgot that in the struggle to repay the old debt, I had incurred an even bigger one. A new debt that could never be repaid. You never asked about your debt. Why I avoided your calls when picking up the phone. You never secretly checked my phone. You never spied on my conversations. Even after receiving that report, you continued to trust me. I betrayed you. I betrayed the most precious trust in this world. Song Hui Shu's leg was never broken. He staged the photos. It was all his conspiracy. But Grandpa was right. Even if he hadn't set that trap, hiding it from you for so many years is still true. He is a bad person, but I am not innocent either. Please forgive me. I have signed the divorce papers. For now, this is probably the only thing I can do. The recording ended there. A terrifying silence fell over the room. Lu Yuan sat by the window motionless like a statue. The phone lay carelessly in his lap. From his tightly closed eyes, a hot tear fell, sliding down his cheekbone and landing on the back of his hand. Then another, then another. No sound, just the pain he had suppressed for so many days finally breaking through the dam. Finally, the honesty he had wanted had arrived. But the person who could once give him the most complete trust in the world could never come back. In the 2 years after signing the divorce papers, Gu Kexi did only 3 things. The first was to settle accounts with Song Hui Shu. She cut off all his financial sources. She took back the apartment bought under Song Hui Jin's name. She dragged him to court on charges of fraud and intentional harm. The court may not have accepted the intentional harm charge, but fraud alone was enough to ruin him. And the most fatal blow came during his most difficult time, an accident. While fleeing creditors, he fell down the stairs and both legs were badly broken. The doctor said he would spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. From that day on, Song Hui Shu's name was completely erased from her world. The second thing was that she went alone to Shishan Cemetery. This time she didn't kneel or cry. She brought a small osmanthus sapling as tall as her shoulder and a shovel. Right next to the old Mistress Lu's grave, she dug a hole with her own hands. She carefully planted the little tree, filled the soil, and watered it. She remembered that when the old Mistress Lu was alive, she once held her hand, pointed to the old osmanthus tree in the Lu family home, and said happily, "Kexi, this is my favorite fragrance in my entire life. It brings me peace." She planted a new osmanthus tree and with it laid the foundation for endless atonement. From that day on, every full moon, she would come herself to water the tree and place a bouquet of fresh white daisies in front of the grave, no matter the weather. The third thing was that she found that photo frame. The blue frame that Lu Yuan had kept in the Gu family office, the one Jiang Linfeng had mentioned, containing the secret photo of her eating ice cream. Lu Yuan had taken the photo with him. The frame was empty. She neither threw away the frame nor put a new photo in it. She placed that empty frame neatly on her desk in the most visible spot on the CEO's desk, so that every time she looked up, she would see it. It was as if she was reminding herself every day of what she once had and whose hands she had lost it from. In those 2 years, Gu Kexi never looked for Lu Yuan. Countless times she wanted to dial that number and hear his voice, but every time she stopped. That call was never made. Lu Yuan stayed abroad quietly and peacefully. He rented a small one-story house with a garden and opened a small architectural design studio. Juri always stayed with him, taking care of him like a child. In Juri's eyes, Lu Yuan was an extremely calm person. He didn't get too angry or cause trouble for anyone. His daily routine was drawing design sketches. Sometimes he would take walks in the nearby park. From the outside, it looked like everything that had happened that year was left behind and life had returned to normal. But Juri always felt that the door to his heart had never truly opened, especially the bedroom door, which always remained tightly closed. No matter how beautiful the sunshine outside, he wouldn't open even a crack. 2 years later, Lu Yuan returned to the city full of wounds. He told no one. He arrived alone with a simple suitcase. The first place he went after returning to his city after so many years was the cemetery on the western mountain. He climbed the steps slowly, one step at a time. When he reached the old Mistress Lu's grave, the osmanthus tree had grown tall and lush, taller than a person. Small, bright yellow flowers hung on the branches. The fragrance was deep and sweet, the same one his grandmother loved most while alive. Lu Yuan stood quietly under the tree, gazing at its fullness and beauty. The child has come home. He didn't cry. He stood calmly in front of the photo and began telling the small stories of the past 2 years, like a child returning from afar and sharing his heart with his closest person. He had no contact with Kexi. Even after returning to the city, he naturally avoided all the places where they might suddenly meet. Only when night fell did he take a taxi back to the villa that had once been theirs. It was the first time he had come here since the divorce. The house was clearly unoccupied, but when he opened the door with the key, he found that the interior decoration was exactly as he had left it. Even the books on the shelf hadn't changed places. He walked to the living room switch and pressed it. With one click, the villa that had been drowned in darkness for 2 years suddenly lit up. One after another, all the lights came on. That bright light instantly filled the quiet villa. If it had been daytime, this would have been the first time in 2 years that all the lights in this villa were on. On the other side of the city, in the high office of Gu Corporation, Gu Kexi was signing a document. It was a complex acquisition contract. Assistant Lin Heng walked in with a strange look of confusion on her face. President Gu, the villa guard, just sent a message. All the lights there are on. The pen in Gu Kexi's hand trembled violently. She didn't raise her eyes. Her gaze remained fixed on the paper. She stayed silent for a long time. Then she spoke softly. Lin Heng said nothing more. She quietly stepped back and closed the door. And the moment the door closed, she glanced back once. Gu Kexi's movements had stopped. She just sat there alone behind the huge desk, her eyes fixed on that empty blue photo frame on the desk. The next day was the 15th of the month, the day Gu Kexi would go to the old Mistress Lu's grave no matter what. The sky was a brilliant blue that day. Gu Kexi wore a black windbreaker. She stood there holding a wrapping of daisy flowers. Her eyes followed the other woman's back. The 2 years of longing, regret, and burning pain all turned into hot tears in that moment. Tears welled up in her eyes. Lu Yuan slowly turned around. 2 long years had left some marks on his face. He had become a little thinner. The lines on his face were sharper, but those same gentle eyes were just as they had always been. They looked at each other. There was no frantic calling as one might imagine. No sorrowful sobbing, no passionate embrace after a long separation. They just stood there, 10 steps apart on either side of the osmanthus tree. Those 10 steps felt like an endless chasm that could never be crossed. Gu Kexi's gaze stayed on him, then fell on the osmanthus cake in his hand. It was the same kind she had learned to make, but she could never recreate the fragrance of his grandmother's hands. She didn't step forward. She simply placed the bouquet of white daisies gently at the roots of the tree. Then she lifted her head, looked into Lu Yuan's eyes, and gave a very faint smile. The osmanthus has bloomed. Grandma will surely like it. Lu Yuan looked at her. The woman who 2 years ago had always kept herself aloof and in control of everything now had a new faint wrinkle at the corners of her eyes.
You were standing by the roadside eating ice cream, with white cream still on the corner of your mouth. You looked so carefree and beautiful when you laughed. He thought you were the most beautiful in that moment but was too shy to tell you. So he secretly took the photo and framed it. He looked at it for 3 whole years. Gukexi had no memory of such a photo. She didn't even remember the details of that meeting. To her, it had probably been just another item on her schedule to handle. But to him, it was a treasure he cherished for 3 years. He worked in this company for 3 full years. From janitor to department head, everyone called him President Gu's husband. How many people even remembered his real name was Lu Yuan? He received an ordinary designer's salary, but did the work of a project manager. His year-end bonus was always the smallest. He endured countless disdainful looks and gossip. Did you ever ask him even once? He never complained to me. Not a single word. Jiang Linfeng's emotions completely shattered. He was like an angry lion pouring out all his pain and resentment at once. Once I asked him, "What are you really doing here? You graduated from a prestigious institution. You had so many great offers. Why stay here enduring everyone's moods?" Do you know what he answered? He said, "As long as I can eat lunch with her in the cafeteria every day, it doesn't matter where I work." That one sentence stabbed into Gu Kexi's weakest spot like the sharpest dagger. She remembered countless noons when she had made him wait in the cafeteria because of meetings or social events, and she would casually say, "You eat first. I'm busy." Those were the ordinary moments he had treasured like gold. Jiang Linfeng seemed to have exhausted all his strength. He took a deep breath and picked up the box from the floor. "President Gu, he was probably the best person I've ever known. But you weren't worthy of him." With that, Jiang Linfeng didn't pause for even a second. Without looking back, he headed straight for the elevator. Gu Kexi stood alone in the quiet corridor, as if all her strength had been drained. The mirror-like polished marble floor reflected her own disheveled and broken figure. It was true. She wasn't worthy. Only now did she understand that what she had lost wasn't a marriage that could be saved with explanations or compensation. What she had lost was a Lu Yuan who had loved her with his entire life, forgiven her, and trusted her. She slowly turned and looked toward her vast CEO office, the symbol of supreme power. For the first time, that door felt distant and cold. She didn't walk toward it. Gu Kexi knew she could no longer go looking for Lu Yuan. Not because she had given up, not because of despair, but because for the first time she truly understood. Some mistakes cannot be fixed by finding the person and explaining everything. The third time she returned to the old Gu family home, Gu Kexi's heart had completely changed. There was no longer the panic and confusion of the first time, nor the stubborn denial of the second. This time her face held a deathly calm. Grandpa Gu Heating was still sitting in the same comfortable chair. Seeing his granddaughter arrive, he only slightly raised his eyes. No words. "Grandpa, I was framed. Song Huaishu's leg was never broken. The X-ray was fake. The doctor was bribed by him. The photos on HS were also deliberately staged by him. He chose the angles and decided the upload timing. It was all to separate me and Lu Yuan. That's why he set this trap. In this envelope is the full audio recording of Iran's testimony, the bank transfer history between Song Huaishu and the doctor, and the timing and plan for those photos that you had restored." Grandpa Gu Heading silently took the envelope and began reading each document one by one. He read every word and sentence with extreme care. In the dim yellow light, the wrinkles on his face looked even deeper. The only sound in the room was the rustling of papers. No one knew how much time passed. Finally, Grandpa Gu Heading finished reading everything. He put the papers back in the envelope and placed it on the center table. Then he raised his head. Those eyes that had witnessed half a century of storms looked at Gu Kexi calmly. So Kexi thinks that by bringing all this, she can go to Lu Yuan and seriously say, "Look, it wasn't my fault. That bad person Song Huaishu framed me, so let's pretend none of it happened and go back to how things were." Gu Kexi's lips moved, but no sound came out, because that was exactly the deepest wish in her heart. Her last remaining hope. She had thought that if she could just prove she was framed, then perhaps something could still be saved. "Kexi, even if Song Huaishu hadn't set this trap, wasn't it true that you secretly maintained contact with another man for over 10 years while hiding it from your husband? Even if those HS photos were fake, Wasn't it true that the moment I learned the old mistress and Lu Yuan were seriously ill and hospitalized, you immediately decided to go overseas to be with another man? Even if Song Huaishu's leg wasn't completely broken, wasn't it true that you ignored their calls? The old mistress Lu, the person your husband respected most, had to leave this world in her final moments filled with regret and disappointment. Wasn't that true? Grandpa Heating spoke slowly. His tone wasn't heavy, but every word was like a red-hot iron nail driving straight into Gu Kexi's bones. Song Huai is a bad person. He's cruel and disgusting. He deserves to die. But Gu Kexi, you are not innocent either. You are not innocent. That sentence was like a thunderclap that violently tore away the last veil of illusion in Gu Kexi's heart. Only now did she understand what she had been trying so hard to prove. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't self-defense. It was all an attempt to shift the entire blame onto Song Huaishu. But the truth was, she was wrong. Her mistake wasn't something that could be erased by exposing Song Huai's conspiracy. Her mistake had begun the moment she chose to hide it. It had already happened then. Song Huai's deception was just the bomb she herself had planted, and now it had exploded. Even if that deception hadn't happened, the crack of dishonesty between her and Lu Yuan would have caused the entire structure to collapse sooner or later. Gu Kexi sat there like a stone statue that had endured years of beating. Lu Jixi's cold face flashed before her eyes. Zheng Linfeng's resolute back flashed before her eyes. Lu Yan's gentle eyes flashed before her eyes, and the last light in those eyes that she had extinguished with her own hands. She remembered the divorce papers Lu Jixi had sent. That document lay quietly in her office drawer like a death warrant. Lu Jixi had said she wouldn't leave until it was signed. "Grandpa, I will sign the divorce papers Lu Jixi sent. But before signing, I want to record some words for him, not as an explanation, but as an apology. Then I will sign." Grandpa Gu Hetting looked at his granddaughter. After a long time, he slowly nodded. On the other side of Port City, Lu Yuan sat in front of an easel. His long fingers held a pencil, sketching architectural lines on the drawing board. Since the divorce, he had immersed himself completely in work. It was the only way to temporarily suppress that image in his mind. Zuri came in softly with a plate of fruit. "Lu Yuan, the old grandpa sent something." Lu Yuan's hand holding the pencil paused ever so slightly. Zuri placed the phone in front of him. On the screen was a new audio file. The old grandpa said Miss Gu has signed the papers, and she insisted on having this delivered to you no matter what. Lu Yuan's heart felt as if a cold hand had suddenly gripped it. A small sharp pain rose, then quickly went numb. He had anticipated this day.
My Lu Yuan has been a bit clumsy since childhood. He doesn't know how to make people happy, but in his heart, there's only your picture. No matter how busy you are, don't forget to eat on time. As long as you two are happy, I don't need anything else. Now those words felt like poisoned daggers, stabbing straight into her heart. She had personally caused the loss of the person Lu Yuan loved most. At 3 in the morning, Madame Gu came downstairs. She saw her daughter still kneeling in the main hall with a straight back. Madame Gu didn't scold her like Gu Yuting or question her like Grandpa. She simply walked over, sat beside her, and quietly watched the flickering candles in front of the memorial. "Kexi, there's something I need to tell you. The morning before you went overseas, Lu Yuan came to see me. He stood right where you are now. He asked me, 'Mom, is Kexi hiding something from me?' Lately, she's been avoiding my calls. At the time, I thought it was just a little quarrel between young couples. I casually said, 'The child is probably upset or sulking. Maybe it's a confidential company matter. Don't overthink it.'" Hearing this, Lu Yuan stayed silent for a long time. Then he smiled at her and said, "Yeah, I know. Maybe it's just my imagination." Gu Kexi's breath almost stopped. Until now, she had thought her deception was flawless and innocent. But this one sentence tore away all the truth. Lu Yuan had always known something was wrong. He had simply chosen to trust her. That single word, trust, was heavier than any accusation or scolding. So heavy that Gu Kexi felt suffocated. Lu Yuan had given her his complete, unconditional trust, and she had used that most precious trust as a weapon to deliver the deepest, most fatal blow. Madame Gu stood up. She looked down at her daughter-in-law, whose entire body was trembling uncontrollably. There was pain and despair in her eyes, but most of all, a grief that tore through the depths of her heart. Kexi, your mistake wasn't going overseas. Your mistake was that from the very beginning you never told him the truth. Those words struck like lightning, hitting Gu Kexi's weakest spot. She had always thought that if she could just prove there was nothing romantic between her and Song, she would be forgiven. But now she understood. The root of the problem had never been Song. The root was the decision she made to hide it. The moment she chose to conceal it, she had hollowed out the foundation of their marriage with her own hands, a crack that could never be repaired. And the old mistress Lu's death was simply the final push that brought the already shaking building crashing down. A bone-chilling cold rose from within her and spread through her entire body. Gu Kexi remained kneeling alone in the center of the empty main hall. For the first time, she felt true despair. On the other side of the city, in some stranger's apartment, Lu Yuan woke up in the middle of the dark night. Thick blackout curtains completely blocked the outside world. There wasn't a single ray of light in the room. You couldn't tell if it was day or night. He stared at the ceiling like a puppet whose soul had been taken away. Yesterday was Grandma's funeral. It was very quiet. Just his sister Lu Jixi and a few close relatives. Throughout the entire process, he didn't shed a single tear. He quietly completed all the rituals. Only after everything ended did he collapse, as if all his strength had drained away at once. The door opened softly. Juri came in with a bowl of hot porridge. Lu Yuan sat up. Eat something. You haven't eaten all day. Lu Yuan's gaze fixed on the bowl. He stared at it for half a minute. He loved porridge the most, the thin minced meat and century egg porridge that Grandma used to make. But the hands that used to make it for him were gone. He took one spoonful, but it wouldn't go down his throat. Juri, don't make this porridge anymore. Lu Yuan picked up the phone from the bedside table. The screen was filled with notifications of missed calls and messages. 47 missed calls from his wife. 99 unread messages from his wife. The name saved was Gu Kexi. Once when he was showering, she had taken his phone and changed the settings, even setting their couple photo as the wallpaper. At the time, he pretended not to notice. But after he came out of the shower and saw the screen, he couldn't hide the smile at the corner of his lips. Lu Yuan's finger gently traced the red heart icon. He didn't listen to any voice messages. He didn't open any texts. He just stared quietly, as if looking at an old object that no longer had anything to do with him. After staring for a long time, he opened the contacts list, found the number saved as wife, and his hand hovered over the edit button. Then decisively, he pressed delete. Do you want to remove this contact? Confirm. That familiar name was erased from his contact list forever. The next morning, when the first rays of sunlight slanted through the windows into the main hall, Grandpa Gu Hetting's figure appeared at the top of the stairs. He was wearing comfortable clothes, the prayer bead still in his hand. Gu Kexi was still kneeling there. Her lips were dry and cracked, her face frighteningly pale. Grandpa Gu Hetting stood in front of her and looked at her silently. Countless emotions tangled in his eyes. Kexi, I'll ask you one more time. Where did you go wrong? After a night of torment and with her mother's words in mind, a earthquake had shaken Gu Kexi's consciousness. With red vein-filled eyes, she answered in a hoarse voice, I was wrong. I was wrong to hide it from him. I was wrong not to tell him the truth from the beginning. She thought this was the deepest remorse she could express, but Grandpa Gu Hetting slowly shook his head. Gu Kexi was stunned. Wasn't that the real mistake? Grandpa Gu Hetting looked at the granddaughter he had raised to be his successor, the granddaughter who had always been so strong and proud. For a moment, a pang of pain rose in his heart. But he knew, if he didn't say it, this child would wander lost for the rest of her life. What you said is only on the surface. It's not the root. Your real mistake was that from the very first day you married him, there has always been a place in your heart reserved for someone else, whether that place was for the deceased Song Hui Jin or the living Song Hui Shu. Lu Yuan saw all of it. A man can tolerate his wife not loving him that much, but he cannot tolerate his wife's heart always belonging to someone else, even if it's only a shadow. Gu Kexi's lips trembled. A lump of cotton seemed stuck in her throat. She wanted to retort, to say it wasn't love, it was just guilt. But not a single word came out, because she knew Grandpa was right. To Lu Yuan, the difference between guilt and love didn't matter. Both were a place that wasn't his, a place already filled by someone else. Grandpa Gu Heting said nothing more. He pushed the divorce papers forward and turned to go upstairs. Gu Kexi remained kneeling on the floor like she had been struck by lightning. She had always thought that clearing up the matter with Song Huai Shu would be enough. But Grandpa's words made her realize for the first time that the root of the problem was never Song. It wasn't even the lies. The problem was the wound in her own heart called Song Huai Jin. Her guilt toward Song Huai Jin had been like a poisonous thorn stabbing into Lu Yuan's heart all along. This time, Gu Kexi didn't stay kneeling on the ground. She struggled to her feet. Then she turned and walked out of the old Gu family home. This time there was no stubbornness or denial in her eyes, only a faint confusion she hadn't even realized yet, and hesitation. At Shishan Cemetery, rows of solemn gray tombstones stood straight. Gu Kexi stood completely alone in front of the old Mistress Lu's grave. The photo on the stone showed that same kind, warm smile. She brought no flowers, no offerings. She felt she wasn't worthy. Gu Kexi stared for a long time. Then she dropped to her knees. The cold stone stung her knees, but she didn't care. She leaned forward and gently pressed her forehead against the cold base of the tombstone, as if doing so could bring her a little closer to that warm grandmother. "Grandma, please forgive me for not answering your call." A simple sentence, yet it came out haltingly. She offered no excuses because no reason could justify ignoring an elder's final wish. She stayed on her knees for a full hour without moving. The cold mountain wind tangled in her hair and traced lines of dried tears on her cheeks, until Assistant Lin Heng's phone rang. There were urgent documents at the company. She had to return immediately. She slowly stood up, bowed deeply once more in front of the grave, and turned away. On the way down the mountain to the car, Gu Kexi leaned back in the rear seat and closed her eyes. Lin Heng glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her face was as white as paper. He didn't dare disturb her. Then Lin Heng's personal phone rang. He checked the screen, an unknown foreign number. He frowned slightly, but answered. "Hello? Hello, is this Assistant Lin? This is Iran, Song Huai's assistant. I beg you, please pass on a message. Director Gu, I will tell everything. Everything." Lin Heng's heart trembled slightly. His eyes involuntarily went to the rearview mirror. Gu Kexi's eyes were still closed, but the slight flutter of her eyelids showed she was listening. Lin Heng immediately put it on speaker. "Mr. Song, please calm down and tell us what happened. Song Huai Shu is a crazy person. He found out I was secretly contacting you. He threatened to ruin my career, to make sure I could never work in this industry again. I've reached my limit, so I've decided to tell the whole truth. I only ask President Gu to give me a way out." The atmosphere inside the car froze instantly. Gu Kexi slowly opened her eyes.
In the third year of their marriage, the CEO's wife quietly flew overseas. She went to see her younger brother, who was suffering from a rare illness. While there, intimate photos of her were suddenly taken and went viral. Panicked, she rushed back immediately. The moment she stepped off the plane, her phone was flooded with countless missed calls and messages. She played the last voice message. The family elders had passed away. "Call me the second you see this." Her face turned deathly pale. She frantically dialed my number. "The number you have dialed is not in service." She didn't give up and called her sister-in-law, Lu Jixi. As soon as the call connected, the voice came through. "The funeral was held yesterday. The divorce papers were left by the lawyer at the old Gu family home. Lu Yuan's wish is that you set him free and also release the Lu family." Gu Kexi felt like her head was about to explode. In her panic, she instinctively started denying everything. Was the phone hacked? What divorce? What right do you have? Song Huai Shu's leg is broken. I promised his brother I would take care of him. You're using a dead person as a weapon against me. She couldn't even finish her sentence before Lu Jixi hung up. Gu Kexi went mad with rage. She couldn't believe they could be so heartless. She immediately called her father, Gu Yuting. Just like before, she hoped for unconditional shelter. Lu Yuan has really gone crazy. He actually divorced you, that crazy one. Gu, let your phone properly. You know, I'm already going through a very difficult time. Because of that boy, you caused your husband's only elder to die in anger. You've humiliated the entire Gu family. I'm warning you as long as I'm alive. That ungrateful wolf will never step foot in this house again. Gu Kexi was stunned. She never expected that the father who had always loved her the most could speak such harsh words. She staggered and stumbled her way there. The familiar carved wooden doors of the old Gu family mansion stood open. The house that was always filled with warm light was now drowned in stark white. A sea of white silk hit her eyes. In the center of the hall, the old rosewood immortal table she had known since childhood had been removed. In its place was a makeshift mourning area. A large black and white portrait of the sixth eldest mistress, surrounded by white daisies. The entire Gu family from Grandpa Gu heading to her father Gu Yuting were all dressed in black without exception. The Liu family hadn't set up their own mourning hall. Grandpa felt he owed the Liu family a debt, so he had arranged this space for his in-laws. It hit Gu Kexi like a heavy punch to the chest. She couldn't stand anymore. Her legs gave out and she fell hard onto the marble floor. She remained on her knees. No one bothered to help her up. No one even glanced at her. Gu Yuting stepped forward with a lifeless face. He picked up a stack of documents and threw them in front of her. The 5 big characters on the divorce papers pierced deep into Gu Kexi's eyes. Sign it. Then go and kowtow 3 times to the old Mistress Liu. That's all you can do for her now. Gu Kexi stared at the paper. Her nails dug into her palms until they nearly drew blood. She couldn't believe that the father who once commanded respect in the business world was now forcing his own daughter to sign such a humiliating document. Her mother, Madame Gu, stood beside her. Her eyes were red, lips trembling, as if she wanted to say something. But in the end, she remained silent, letting out only an unspoken sigh. Gu Kexi lifted her head. Her gaze passed her parents' cold faces and landed directly on the person seated at the highest position, Grandpa Gu heading. Where is Lu Yuan? Where is he? I want to see him. I need to explain everything to him myself. She still believed it was all just a misunderstanding. If she could just meet Lu Yuan once and clearly tell him that the overseas issue with Song was completely innocent, everything would go back to normal. Grandpa Gu Heating's eyes were tightly closed. Like a meditating monk, the sandalwood beads that had been worn smooth over many years turned rhythmically in his broad palm. He didn't shout in anger like Gu Yuting, nor did he stay silent like Madame Gu. After a long time, the beads stopped. The old man slowly opened his eyes. There was no anger, no accusation, just a deep, suffocating disappointment. Daughter, do you know what the old Mistress Lu's last words were before she left? She said, call Kexi. I want to see that child. The old Mistress Lu, in her final moments, wanted to see Gu Kexi, the very elder you caused to die in anger. Until the end, she was thinking of this daughter-in-law. It's a pity you didn't come. Not only did you not come, but at that time, you were with another man. Hearing this, Gu Kexi completely broke down. All the panic, rage, and pain she had held in during the journey poured out in hot tears. She wanted to open her mouth and explain. She wanted to say that Song Huaishu's leg was really broken. She wanted to say it wasn't what everyone thought. But in front of those words, every excuse sounded pale and hollow. Grandpa Gu Heading slowly closed his eyes again, as if he no longer wanted to look at her. I won't tell you where Lu Yuan is. This isn't the old man being cruel or trying to stop you from meeting. But right now, Gu Kexi, you are not worthy of seeing him. When you understand where you went wrong, then we'll talk. With that, he waved his hand. Gu Yuting helped him back to his room. When the old Mistress Lu was in the hospital and still conscious, the moment she saw the news on the phone, she suddenly had a heart attack. So this was the executioner who had handed her the knife with her own hands. In an instant, the vast mourning hall became empty. Only Gu Kexi remained, still kneeling on the floor. She looked at the divorce papers, then at the portrait of the old Mistress Lu. Through tear-blurred eyes, she still didn't want to sign. She couldn't believe Lu Yuan could be so cruel. Were 3 years of feelings worth nothing in front of a single photo? Was a misunderstanding worth such a heavy price? She stubbornly kept her back straight. She would stay kneeling here until Grandpa's heart softened, until he told her where Lu Yuan was. Just one meeting with Lu Yuan, and everything could still be fixed. It could still be fixed. The night grew deep, and the old Gu family mansion sank into silence. Gu Kexi had been kneeling for more than 8 hours. The burning pain in her knees had long gone numb. She felt nothing anymore. Staying in the same position for so long made her back ache as if it would break, but this physical pain was nothing compared to the torment in her heart. In that silence, old memories surged like tidal waves. Her marriage to Lu Yuan had begun as a calculated alliance, a business deal. She needed an obedient husband who wouldn't challenge her position, someone who could help silence the old board members. And the Lu family, whose wealth had sunk, needed capital to revive their family business. Lu Yuan was the most suitable candidate. Everyone thought it was simply a mutually beneficial transaction. From the beginning, Gu Yuding looked down on this live-in son-in-law with contempt. His words were always full of disdain. He never gave Lu Yuan any major position or important responsibility, just small tasks. In the business world, rivals found it even more ridiculous. They openly and behind his back mocked Lu Yuan, calling him a parasite living under President Gu's shadow. Lu Yuan never argued. He never explained. He just quietly did his work. Gu Kexi still remembered clearly one time after an overseas acquisition, she had stayed up for 3 straight nights. When she returned home, she was exhausted. At that time, Lu Yuan didn't ask anything. He silently prepared hot water, made a steaming bowl of noodles, and sat beside her, keeping her company. In that moment, she suddenly felt that this man she had always treated as her property was somehow giving her the feeling of home. And in the Lu family, from beginning to end, the one who truly welcomed her and blessed them both was only the old Mistress Lu. She wasn't highly educated and didn't know how to speak sweet words, but she always held Gu Kexi's hand.